Who will have more receptions in 2022, Charlie Five? Coy Moore or Tarvarish Dawson?
Ooh, Coy Moore.
Oh, okay.
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken farm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're talking all things Coy Moore, and also in our third segment today, the Auburn Tigers are regional champs, and they will head over to Oregon State for the super regional action over there. We'll chat with Lindsey Crosby about that in a moment. But first, Auburn message board legend Charlie Five joins us. We have not spoken since Auburn landed Coy Moore via the transfer portal. Your big picture thoughts about the addition, bud?
Oh, first of all, I love it. I'm huge pickup. Yeah. People want I guess people expect a lot of times out of the portal this like super finished product, and I think a lot of times you're looking at guys based off of projections, fit, and a lot of times they're young guys, so they haven't had a lot of chance to really excel, really succeed yet. You look at guys like Jamison Williams, who had like 8 catches his freshman year, 6 catches his freshman year, 9 catches his sophomore year, and then he's a first-round pick. So at Alabama, we were felt like we were a failure for not getting this guy, Kyron Lacey, from University of Louisiana. Mm-hmm. He had 22 catches his freshman year. So did Coy Moore, 28 his sophomore year. So we got a guy that's got SEC experience. He can kind of do a lot of different things, and I honestly think he's going to be one of our better receivers from the minute he steps on campus.
So you're thinking instant impact for this guy?
I think immediate impact. Maybe even immediate starter opposite, maybe like Shed Jackson on the other side, something like that.
The more I talk to folks about him and learn more about this kid, the more I like him.
Yes.
A note I said yesterday that I need to correct was potential. The timing was grades, but he had a 3.5 GPA at LSU, as I've been told. So that's great. I love that. He loves the playbook, Charlie Five. Like he loves just digging into playbooks. And I think that's, for him to come in at this point and have an impact this season, that's the answer. That's how you do it, is you got to catch up and, you got to gain ground on the mental side of it.
Yeah, and even though you were corrected and you correct yourself, whatever, I mean, I can totally see where you're coming from. Because he went in the portal in October. Why didn't he go anywhere in December? Why did it take this long to sort of find a spot? Don't really know about all that. Don't really care anymore. I don't see this guy as super top-end speed, take the top off the defense, but you know who else did it? Who is a similar size, played at the same school? Jarvis Landry. Ran a 4.7 40 in the combine. So, and we know how he is, how he fought for the ball, and that's the way I kind of look at this guy. He goes, he gets open and he fights for the ball. Even at 6 foot 180, he's not your 6'4", 220 long freak type wide receiver. He's just a warrior. He's just a warrior. Goes after the ball. And I really like him. And I think he could really be like a Jarvis Landry type guy. Is just watching his film, watching Jarvis Landry, and obviously the LSU connection.
I'll take that.
That's what I'm kind of looking at as a comparison.
I'll take that. Yeah, we've talked about this before on offense at times last year and for years. It seems like we get pushed around a little bit. Nobody's pushing this dude around, or he's gonna do something about it.
Absolutely.
That's the vibe I get. That's the personality that we think Brian Harsin wants this team to have. So to me, it checks a ton of boxes.
For sure.
I like the Jarvis Landry comparison. Jarvis Landry, not fast.
No.
But quick. I don't really see this guy as a super quick receiver either. I think he's just aware, and I think he's just a smart football player. And I think that's going to allow him to get some separation in different ways.
Right.
You mentioned opposite of Shed Jackson. And to me, I don't know if you heard the show yesterday, but like I think they're similar. In fact,
Yes.
I made the statement. I think Coy Moore can be the receiver that his coaching staff wanted Shedrick Jackson to be.
I heard that, and I think that was spot on. I think that's spot on. I think they're going to be very similar. They're going to be very similar type receivers that you're going to look at to move the chains. 7, 8 yards a catch. And be sort of like a security blanket. And then you're going to have guys like Landon King on the outside, Malcolm Johnson Jr. that can stretch the field. And then, your smaller guys like Jay Fair, Javarius Johnson to sort of eat up stuff in the middle, tight ends eat up stuff in the middle. But you're just reliant, trusty hands guys. I think you're that. I just love this kid. I just love this kid's ability. And I think it's a huge pickup.
Yeah, I do too. All right, in just a moment, Charlie 5, I want to play a game.
Yes.
Play a game. What that game is, you'll find out in just a moment. On today's Locked On Auburn, today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Don't you love a chewy, chocolatey brownie? The answer is yes. I know you do. What about a caramel brownie with caramel swirl on top? So good. What if I told you that the chewy, chocolatey deliciousness also had 17 grams of protein and it was low in calories? You'd be like, that doesn't exist. And I'd be like, well, you're wrong. You can find it at built.com. Built Bar has done it again. They continue to just put out the best tasting products on the market. There's a million reasons why you should try Built Bars, but for now, let's just say that caramel brownie, it's going to rock your world. You see Charlie 5 on YouTube, that rocks your eyes. You hear Charlie 5 on audio form, that rocks your ears. But what's going to rock your mouth? Built Bar. Built.com. Use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off. That is at Built.com. Charlie 5, our guest today, Auburn message board legend. But before we
jump in, on the edge of my seat there.
You're like, what is he going to be sure to come back for tomorrow's Locked On Auburn because we will be joined by special guest Micah Riley Ducker, the freshman.
Beast child.
Incredible kid. The kid's got a bright future. I'm really, really impressed with him. All right, so let's play a game.
Let's do it.
You and I both believe Coy Moore will impact the offense in 2022.
Totally.
So I'm going to go through the receivers on the roster, and you are going to tell me who will have more catches in 2022, more receptions in 2022, Coy Moore or the receiver that I list. You ready?
Okay, hit it.
I'm just going in order on Auburn's roster here. Who will have more receptions in 2022, Charlie 5? Coy Moore or Tarvarish Dawson?
Ooh, Coy Moore.
Oh, okay. Who will have more receptions, Coy Moore or Jay Fair?
Coy Moore.
Wow. Javarius Johnson or Coy Moore?
I'm going to say it, put a disclaimer. I feel like it would be Javarius Johnson. If some things get worked out, I'm going to go Javarius Johnson on that one.
Okay. In your mind, is Coy Moore operating out of the slot for the most part? That's what he did the majority of his snaps at LSU. Do you think he does that, or do you? We
got 1,000 slot guys. I kind of feel
my
like
thing too. Yeah,
I think he's going to be an outside. I think he's going to be an outside guy.
Okay. Who has more receptions in 2022, Coy Moore or Shedrick Jackson?
Shedrick Jackson.
Yeah, I agree with that. Coy Moore or Malcolm Johnson Jr.? This one's a tough one for me.
There's just so many guys. There's so many guys that he's going to be splitting time with, and I'm probably going to go. I think I'm still going to go. I'm still going to be Coy Moore. I think it's going to be Coy Moore and Shed Jackson 1 and 2.
Okay,
Javarius Johnson. Javarius Johnson, if he's starting in the slot. And then those three will be your 1, 2, and 3, I think. Shed, Javarius, and Coy. That's who I got as 1, 2, 3.
Who would have been the third name before Coy Moore?
Probably Malcolm Johnson Jr. or Tarvarish Dawson.
Okay, I'm in the Jay Fair camp here.
Maybe so. I mean, again, there's like 10 of those guys. It seems like there's 10 of those guys. There's Jay Fair, there's Javaris Johnson, there's Malcolm Johnson Jr. There's a ton of those guys that they're going to play in the slot. So like, who gets the most snaps? I don't think it's because Jay Fair's. If he doesn't have as many receptions, I don't think it's because he's better or a least effective weapon. I just think there's just so many. There's so many slot guys. There's so many slot guys and so few outside guys. And we run a lot of perimeter stuff. Like, you even look at some of the drills that Calzada's doing where he's ripping ball. The thing everybody's oohing and ahhing over, where he's ripping balls to the outside. That's an outside receiver route. That's an outside, like run deep, 15-yard cut to the sideline, and he's hitting you on that. That is an outside receiver route. Like, we're going to run a ton of that. I kind of feel like so. I just kind of where I just think there's so many dudes that could play, in the slot, and there's just not a lot of true outside guys. Okay,
so you have them getting more catches than Devion Capers, right?
Yes. And
Jalen Worsham.
Yes.
Okay. John Samuel Shanker.
Now, that one could be tough.
That's a no-brainer to me.
He led the
John Samuel Shanker.
Shanker led the team last year, I think, in reception. It would be Shanker.
What about Landon King? Yeah.
Landon King. I'm still.
The answer should be Landon King.
The answer should be, but he's sort of like that mythical creature that we just can continually hope and pray that we're going to see, and we hear all these rumors about. He's freakish.
He's that makes more sense. How about that?
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't even put him in the same category as JJ Pegues, but he is that legend. He is that camp practice legend that we keep hearing about. But I don't think he'll have more receptions than Coy Moore.
Dang.
He should, but he probably won't. If he does, though,
Cedric Jackson on the field at the same time. Are we excited about that?
I think that you're excited about the You're not necessarily going to have the just super big playability, but I don't think they're going to be super relied upon to do that. But I think on third down, having those two guys out on the field, that's a big deal. Third and 6, 3rd and 7, those two guys able to, they're veterans. They play smart. They play hard. Then it's just a matter of catching the ball. And Coy I don't think has ever really proven himself to have, a drop issue. Shedrick has had trouble getting separation at times, but he's got pretty, for the most part, he makes plays with his hands. I think you're happy with those two guys. Maybe not necessarily early on first down, but like when you got to have a catch, having those two guys out there, I think you're going to be happy with it.
So I want to continue this game, but branch it off a little bit.
Okay.
I went on the War Report's Facts or Nah for this week.
Yeah.
And one of the questions was pertaining to about how many pass catchers on this team have over double-digit receptions.
Ooh.
Last year was 8. There were 8 of them, and 3 of those
receivers or running backs.
Anybody
on the team. Okay.
And so there were 8, and 3 of those guys are no longer on the team. Kobe Hudson was first with 44 catches. Demetrius Robertson was third with 37 catches. And then Sean Shivers was there with 22.
Wow. I didn't know he had 22 catches.
22 is a good bit for that.
Sean, yeah.
I feel like a lot of them came in LSU, though. But so how many do you think that happens for now? I think Auburn gets more than 8 guys that have double-digit catches. Do 3 running backs hit that like they did last year? Tank and Jarquez do, unless something terrible happens.
Yeah.
So Damari, I think, can. Whoever wins the third running back role gets it.
Remember, though, Jarquez got dinged up at some point in time, which probably allowed others to play. I really think that those two guys are going to eat up so many minutes. And then hopefully when Damari comes in, it's going to be to run the clock out. I think 8.5. I would set the over under 8.5, and I may take 9. You know what I mean? Like maybe 8 or 9. To me, that's not that bad. That's not a bad number.
So there were several guys that were so close. Like, I think 4 tight ends could have double-digit catches this year.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Well, Shanker's going to.
If it depends on what you count as.
Counting Landon King as one.
Landon King is one. Yeah, if you count Landon King as
I'm
one.
obsessed with him, so I'm going to give him all the receptions in the world. And then last year, Luke Deal had 9, and Tyler Fromm had 8. So, like, they were really close, you know?
Yeah, and hell, Brandon Frazier had like 10 catches in the 8A game. Not that means it on one drive. Not that means anything, but
yeah,
it's crazy. There's actually a lot of weapons at tight end. The more you think about it, if you could run 5 tight ends, I would say run it.
The conversation with Micah tomorrow, he's like, I'm asking about the tight end room, and he's like, yeah, we're the best room on the team. And I'm like, I agree.
I don't disagree at all. Like, easily the best.
Like, maybe defensive line, maybe, but yeah, no, like, it's probably you guys. It's probably you guys. That's fair.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. I mean, it's dead on when you think about it.
Yeah, no, own it. I think he was kind of making a joke, but I'm like, no, I think you're right, dude. So yeah, I think Shedrick, Shanker, Tank, Javarius, Jarquez. And then I think Landon King does it. We think Coy Moore does it.
Yeah.
I think a third running back does, whether it's Jordan Ingram or Damari Austin. I think one of them does it. So, I mean, that gets us to that 8 number.
I can see. That's what I think. I think 8 or 9 is about right. That should be about right for this team.
Do they have 2 guys break 40 receptions like they did last year?
You right off the bat, you want to say yes, but there's just like I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. There's so many guys in that, and I'm of the belief that we're going to have to throw it 40 times a game. Yeah, I mean, there could be multiple guys with 40 receptions. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be averaging 15 plus yards a catch. Like, it could be, 7, 6, 7, 8 yards a catch. But I could easily see with the way I feel like this offense is going to have to run perimeter, bang it up the middle, dump it off to the tight end. I just see a lot of that with this offensive line and not a very mobile quarterback. I could see multiple guys with over 40 receptions.
Yeah, I think I think Shed passes it. Based on this conversation, I guess we both think Coy Moore passes it.
Yes. And
I think Shanker passes it. Shanker had 33 last year.
And I'm hoping Tank passes it.
Dang, that'd be awesome.
I hope Tank passes it. I want Tank. I mean, Tank needs 4 catches a game coming out of the backfield. Every time he does it, he gets like 50 yards. I mean,
if Tank doesn't get 4 targets and John Samuel Shanker doesn't get like 4 to 6 targets, I'm like, what are we doing here? Right?
Why are we playing this game? Like, let's go play basketball.
And baseball.
What are we doing? And baseball.
Before we jump into our conversation about baseball and their incredible weekend out at Plainsman Park, Charlie 5, how can people find you and hear you and all that good stuff?
Absolutely. Find me on Twitter, _Charlie_5, the AuburnLive.com, the corner message board, in the Locked On Auburn Discord. There every day. A lot of fun. Link is in the description. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday on the Dad Bod Golf Pod. A lot of fun golf stuff right now. Live Tour action, like a lot of fun golf stuff to talk about right now. U.S. Open.
And now Lindsey Crosby of AuburnDaily.com and Locked On MLB Prospects joining us here for the final few minutes on Locked On Auburn. And man, I think the talking point is clear. The Auburn Tigers heading to the Super Regional. The Auburn Tigers that were projected to finish last in the SEC have found a way when there's just 16 teams left. The Auburn Tigers are still there, Lindsey.
Yeah. LSU didn't make it. Vanderbilt didn't make it, as we know, because now we have to travel to Oregon. But Auburn has obviously beat UCLA, is going into the Super Regionals for, fun fact, the 3rd time in the last 5 years. And one of those, we didn't have a postseason. So really, the 3rd time out of the last 4 tournaments, Auburn has made the Super Regionals. Baby, we're a blue blood at this point.
Incredible. But that's what was so crazy about Auburn not hosting a regional since 2010, because they've been good since Butch Thompson's been here, but Butch Thompson hadn't been able to host a regional before while at Auburn. So that's what was kind of so surreal about it. But Lindsey, you and I talked about this a little bit on the show yesterday, just how electric and how incredible Plainsman Park was throughout the weekend. And man, the guys on the diamond, they answered it. They answered it every step of the way. The offense, it seems like everybody got on base like it every time they went up to bat. Like it was an incredible run of offense, an absolute explosion. And the pitching stepped up when it needed to. I mean, it was just a solid, dominant weekend for the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, and to write the piece that's up now at auburndaily.com, kind of recapping the weekend and then previewing the Super Regional, I was in there pulling the stats. Every single lineup regular had multiple hits. Every single lineup regular scored runs. Auburn scored 51 runs in 3 games, and they were plus 33 in run differential over these 3 games.
And it would have been worse if they didn't have to pause the UCLA game in the 6th inning and resume the next day, because Auburn smelled blood. There was no way UCLA was scoring. Mason Barnett was absolutely on fire. I mean, it was just an impressive outing. Yeah. Props
in the piece. There's a great thing from Butch about the outing and about what they changed mid-outing to make it more effective. And so when you see him go out there in the 4th and in the 5th and in the 6th, and he's just rolling. At one point, he had retired. I want to say it was 12 or 13 straight Bruins. They made one little minor mechanical tweak to what he was doing mid-game. Butch just walked over to him for the end and said, "Hey, why don't you try this?" Boom, done. And Butch talked about in the post game that, this is the game that, one, it's the best outing of Mason Barnett's career.
Yeah.
Given the circumstances, given the stage, given the opponent, given the circumstances, best outing of his career, and the one that cemented him as a guy who's going to get picked in the MLB draft and is going to go higher than people expect come July.
Yeah, people like his traits a ton. I mean, is he a strikeout guy? I mean, he certainly was. He certainly was in the start against UCLA, but I just don't really remember him being that much of a strikeout guy consistently throughout the season.
So his issue was he wouldn't always be able to land the curveball for strikes, and then he'd be a little inefficient. And so he was striking guys out while he was in there, but his outings would end early because his pitch count would get up. And then we saw in this, he comes out in the 6th, and I want to say he's at maybe 80-something pitches because he's just been mowing guys down because he's landing the curveball. The fastball is working elevated in the zone, and it's just, he's got the full repertoire. He's got all 4 pitches working for him, the slider, the changeup's there, and he turned it on to another level. And if that's the Mason Barnett that we're going to get on Friday Friday or Saturday, we don't actually know which day it starts, but if we're going to get that for the Super Regionals, we have a really good chance at beating a Cooper Yerpe, the ace for Oregon State, who will undoubtedly throw on Friday night.
Yeah, and that'll be an exciting matchup for sure, especially to see, can this Auburn offense keep doing what it's doing? Obviously, it's going to drop off some because this is more like a traditional 3-game series. It's not, people on their 6th or 7th pitchers on the second day type thing. It's a different environment. This is more like what they've been used to seeing week in and week out throughout the SEC season, but it's still, you got to love the momentum that Auburn has leaving the regional. Oregon State, they had to scrap and claw. You could definitely tell they weren't comfortable. Vandy gave them everything they possibly could. That was a back and forth game.
They brought Cooper back on 2 days rest to throw 2 innings to steal this win on Monday. And when you watch this matchup, these teams are very, very similar. So Oregon State, just kind of like Auburn as far as power goes, they've got that one guy with double-digit home runs. They've got Jacob Melton. We've got Sonny DeShera, and everybody else is in the high single digits. Batting average is kind of similar to where Auburn's is. Still slugging right there where Auburn's is. The only difference is they're top 3 in the country in walks. And so because of that, they have more opportunities to steal, and they play on turf. So,
oh no,
kind of a replica of what we saw at Kentucky. The ball is going to be a bit faster. The guys will have a little bit better footing. But this is all going to come down, again, as we said so many times, to the arm of Nate LaRue. And what can he do from the catching position to slow down this running game? Yeah,
and he had a good weekend. He had a good weekend as well. The comments that Butch made after Auburn secured the regional.
Ooh.
There was a moment there, and there was a lot of good stuff. Of course, proud of his guys. You mentioned changing the approach and all of that, but He said, Omaha's great, but it's national championship or bust. Mm-hmm. And it's time, if you just go there with the mindset of Omaha, it's all about Omaha, you're going to go 0-2 like Auburn did in 2019. That's what he referenced. This program now is at the point where it's like, why not? Like, we deserve this. The way Auburn played this weekend. And Lindsay, what was the storyline going into this weekend? What was the toughest regional to get out of? It's what everybody was saying.
Oh, it was Auburn's. And UCLA was picked to win it, not Auburn.
Yep. And so you just look at it, and it's like, man, they did it. They absolutely dominated the toughest draw of all the national seeds. And that storyline's going to go away, but Auburn folks will remember that.
Yeah. And the big thing to me is, Butch referenced the environment being like a football or basketball environment. And kind of in that same vein, Butch mentioned how the expectations at some point in time have to move. And it can't just be Omaha, but the expectations have to be national championship. And great quote he said. He's like, people don't fail because they aim high and miss. They fail because they aim low and hit. Whew. And so given the last 4 tournaments, we have made super regionals in 3 of them and the College World Series in 1, possibly 2 this year. I think we are at the point where we need to say that going forward, the expectation of this program is national championship. That is where Auburn is right now. We need to understand that. The national media doesn't get that. We get that. But I think now other people are going to realize that is what this program's about.
So what are you looking for? Just one last thing. What are you looking for as Auburn gets ready to travel virtually to the other side of the world and take on Oregon State?
Thanks for nothing, Vandy. So one, I want to see, does this offense continue? And it's something where we took advantage of some bad defenses. Southeastern Louisiana had some injured guys. UCLA's been okay. Florida State's had a bad defense. I talked about that in the preview. Oregon State defensively is very much like Auburn. They actually have a fielding percentage better than Auburn's. They're in the top 10, same as we are. Yeah. And so can Auburn make it work against a team that's not giving away free runners via errors, via defensive miscues, and via walks? That's going to be the real thing. If Auburn continues to hit like they did, they're going to score runs. But my question is going to be, what's it going to look like when you're not getting all of that extra help that you got this weekend? Because Auburn, Florida State walked 16 Auburn Tigers. 16. I actually asked Brody Bourne in postgame. I'm like, is it hard to focus on hitting when if you just stand there, they'll walk you anyway? And he was like, we kind of have to try, do extra work to stay in our process because we want to hit. We want to find a pitch to hit and drive. And so I'm confident in the coaching, but it's just, that's going to be the big thing to me is what does it look like when you're facing a team of, I'm going to say equal talent versus one where you were facing a lower level defense or lower level pitching over the weekend. What's that going to look like? That's going to be the big battle here. And I think ultimately it's going to be close. I think it's probably going to go all 3 games.
Yeah, I think it will. And interestingly enough, if you would have asked me this a few weeks ago, I would have said that probably hurts Auburn's chances. But now I think Auburn feels really good about its bullpen. I think they have several guys that they feel super confident with.
Yeah, the big thing that I took away from this weekend is the state of pitching is better for Auburn than I think we expected. We all know Joseph Gonzalez has been great. Trace Bright has pitched really well. But if this is the Mason Barnett that you are going to get, then you have 3 legitimate, very, very good pitchers to lead your rotation. And then you have confidence in a Skipper and a Burkhalter, but you have new confidence in an Alsop and an Armstrong and some of the younger guys. And so there's a nice blend and it's all kind of come together. And this is what they intended to do last year before they lost the top 3 veteran starting pitchers to injury and had to run out the young guys. This is what it was supposed to look like last year. But you have to feel really good about the pitching depth. And I think more pitching depth than Oregon State has. They don't even have an established closer. They had to bring in their ace on 2 days rest to come out and close that game today because they didn't have someone that they trust. So if there's any sort of advantage, they have the advantage when it comes to walks and getting on base. So the only difference really there is on base percentage is higher. we have the advantage when it comes to depth of pitching, especially out of the pen. So let's see what happens there. It's going to be a great matchup.
Lindsay, how can people find you, hear you, and support all of your stuff?
I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. My show, Locked On MLB Prospects, is available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. You can follow that show at Locked On Farm, the writing, auburndaily.com, and the merch, aushirts.com.
Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. Thank you so much to Auburn message board legend Charlie Five and Lindsay Crosby for helping me out through today's show. We'll be back tomorrow. Once again, fun episode tomorrow. Micah Riley Ducker joins the show. We'll also chat with Mike G of the War Report. All that and more tomorrow, right here on Locked On Auburn.